inside first. And we've debated about it and talked, and John has told me about having to go through a time where the Institute really had to decide, what is our identity? Are we committed to inside first as a fundamental descriptor of who we are and how we encourage leadership development, or not? And there was something of a split, and some folks went in a different direction, and John said, no, I've got to stay the course here. In fact, he felt strongly led that he had to stay the course. And that really appeals to me. As John described, I spent a number of years in the military, and I was on the faculty at West Point, and there's a very strong emphasis not just on learning the techniques and the methods of leadership, of studying the art and the science of leadership, but also of developing character and ethics as the fundamental foundation for leadership. And so when I was asked by the superintendent to write a book, and I did, I didn't think there was a book there, but his editor did. So I wrote the book, and that now has me going to China to talk about that stuff a good bit. And invariably, what I find is that the audiences love to hear about the techniques and methods of leadership, but they all have a sense of, yes, leadership is a dangerous tool unless it has some guidance as to where and how effective leadership should be used. What are the causes that are worthy of our committing our leadership skills to, and which ones ought not to be advanced? And John and I have also talked a good bit about where does the spiritual dimension come into this? Because it seems like all of us, it seems like it's an aspect of human nature that we have a yearning for a sense of meaning, that we can be very successful in our careers, and eventually we discover that we're working in order to provide food and clothing and shelter, and then we turn around and go out and work some more to continue providing food, clothing, and shelter, and finally have to say, is that all there is? Alfie, is this really all there is? And we all have this sense, and even the atheist is responding to a yearning for meaning in life when they passionately argue that there cannot be a God. And they're committed to it, and they really work at it. And they spend a lot of energy on the internet developing their arguments. And then others spend equal passion and energy arguing for whatever spirituality or faith tradition that they're a part of. It seems that we all have a need for meaning, purpose, and a yearning to move forward in. And it seems to me that's what we're trying to capture with Inside First. I would love to ask you, what does Inside First mean to you? You've surely heard this expression being used to describe VLI. What does it mean to you? Art?
Before you can truly lead others, you have to be very founded and solid in your own beliefs and sense of purpose.
Thank you. Somebody else? Yes, sir.
You have to really know who you are. It's kind of what Art is saying. You really have to know yourself well before you can articulate anything outside.
Good. Yes.
What's the values that you have?
Can't hear back here.
What you care about.
What you care about.
Can hear.
You have to know your own values, what you care about, what means the most to you. Yes, sir.
Knowing what you'll do when no one's looking.
Yeah. What do you do when no one's looking? What is the real you? If no one's looking, what will you automatically, spontaneously do? A reflection of your character. Somebody else? Yes.
Actively spend time cultivating your own inner life.
Ah, interesting. Actively spend time cultivating your inner life. Someone else. Well, what, John? Yes, John.
Thought of our conversation is, I thought of something I never thought of before. A lot of people go out and straighten out other people's lives, but they ought to straighten their own out first. It's almost like cleaning up somebody else's home and your home's a mess. So maybe you ought to clean your own home first.
Yeah, good point. Inside first. Start with me first. With the inside, with the stuff that's really the most important. With my character, what I would do spontaneously if no one was watching. Work on that first before I endeavor to help others. Yes, sir.
But yet, don't wait till you're perfect, because that'll never happen. Use your faux pas and some of your defects as growth opportunities with your fellows.
I'd never join a club that would have me as a member.
We keep waiting until we're the perfect mentor or leader, it'll never happen. We
Yeah.
plug into other people's messy lives.
Yeah, very good. We'll never be there. Somebody else? Yes.
I think it requires a real self-awareness to be in the present. And a lot of people worry about the future and where's this going to go, and then so they can use ulterior motives. But if you stay in the present, be aware.
Yeah, thank you. Kind of circling back to where we started, aren't we? With self-awareness. The question John and I want to pose to you is whether the Institute ought to be somehow actively encouraging the development of that inside first perspective, developing character, ethics. Should we be doing things on a continuing basis to encourage those who come to us for encouragement and help to know themselves better, to grow that character, to understand how to move forward? Should we be doing that? Is that something that VLI ought to undertake as an active part of the programming of developing modules? And if so, how would we do that? And that's the question we're posing this morning. Should we be undertaking to do that? And if so, how? And I want to offer just a few thoughts to try to stimulate, throw some more seeds out there, and then I want to come back to you and ask for your further response to those two questions. Should we be doing it? If so, how? John had a introduction to this document. Do all of these people receive this?
Yes.
Okay. So you all have seen this, and John on the interior comments about what inside first means. In his words, he says, we define the inside first framework as a process that starts there, inside. Clarifying values, a worldview, and a purpose that differentiates our character, and then emanates outward, advanced by skills of visioning and planning to guide our actions and our relationships. Then he goes on. We believe that people who incorporate their spiritual perspective, however that's defined, into their lives are more likely to seek meaning and significance over self-aggrandizement. We think that our quality of life and our leadership effectiveness are built more on character and personal ethics than on skills. And we believe that one's character and ethics are in turn founded primarily on that spiritual perspective that takes one beyond a focus merely on the self. So, John has established foundation there that leadership is founded on character and ethics, and character and ethics are, for most of us, founded on some kind of a spiritual perspective. And so, if we want to start from the inside first, we need to talk about the spiritual dimension as it feeds character and ethics, as it then underlies and feeds our leadership effectiveness and our personal effectiveness. One of you responded by saying that I think it was the lady back here, that spiritual perspective really ought to be a dynamic process. And most of us, most faith traditions, whatever faith tradition you come from, you probably are well aware of encouragement to be growing, to be learning, to be developing that spiritual perspective. And I am aware of that from my own spiritual tradition. I want to share a few things with you from that tradition, in the confidence that every spiritual perspective encourages growth, that it's an essential part of who we are as human beings, that we experience physical development from a baby through old age. We experience social development, intellectual development, moral development, spiritual development, and of course we can't compartmentalize these. We are integrated people, and so that development occurs all at once in a very complex and unique way. But we do identify that aspects of that can be separated and talked about in terms of moral development, spiritual development. James Fowler is a researcher, an author, who has done a lot of work on stages of spiritual development. Others have done that kind of work as well. I find his to be the most appealing, the most attractive, because as I read his stages, I can sort of see myself in what he's describing, and it has a sense of validity, a sense of genuineness, that he's really gotten, he's on to something with the descriptions of these stages. And my point here is not to go into his 6 stages, but to note that in his approach, and in all approaches, I think, we can move forward, sort of moving from one paradigm to a new and richer paradigm. And the stage theory that he suggests says that we can move to a place and we can stay there, or if we are willing, we can move onward, forward, to a higher level. And that higher level is not necessarily better, but it's different. And such theories do suggest that there is a developmental process even in our spirituality, that we feel as a personal development, leadership development organization can consider, are there ways that we can be fostering that spiritual development? Should we be doing that? And if so, how? We have the view that, unlike some organizations which want to avoid talking about spirituality, we want to embrace discussion of spirituality in the sense that all of us as humans have this yearning, without focusing on any one tradition, but rather to say, if all of us are free to talk about our spirituality, even if it's from an atheist viewpoint or an agnostic viewpoint, or from any of the faith traditions or new traditions that have arrived, if we have a freedom to talk with one another within the VLI context, then we can learn from one another. And that dialogue, which has been so fundamental to the success of all of VLI's programs, that dialogue may be an incredibly useful tool for exploring spirituality. When I explain to you the best that I know of my tradition and invite you to tell me all that your tradition means to you, we will find common ground where we will grow together. And as we honor each other, probably we're going to be refreshed and deepened and strengthened within our own tradition as we see the fruit of that dialogue.